Welcome to FinTech Fun Talks. Today, we are talking with Brett Walisever, and Brett is a FinTech consultant with a focus on healthcare, and he's currently working on a big project with FlexBuy. So, Brett, could you tell us a little bit more about what you're currently doing with FlexBuy?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think we've created a new product offering into the healthcare fintech space, specifically surrounding healthcare, but adaptable for other markets too. When I started sort of in this fintech journey back in, I would say 16,
Mhm.
really just focused on healthcare and really sold what we had versus listening to what people needed and or wanted. And so we've created a product called Bizly, which is a bespoke experience for every healthcare merchant that uses the platform. Meaning it's a sort of a one-stop hub for anything payment or financing related when it comes to a healthcare practice. And so we can take that and obviously make it adaptable with other industries. But we do think making the user experience, having the user experience for a healthcare office with a patient, making it very sticky and just creating as little confusion as possible with as much transparency as possible. What we've noticed in the past is that whether you're working on platforms or partnerships, a lot of things that end up in front of a consumer or a patient or even a doctor in healthcare, it's not super transparent. Sometimes
Mm.
people just don't know who they are doing business with. And when you're sending sensitive information, and how easy it is now, it's important to really know, why am I paying for this? Who am I paying? And what am I really getting out of this? So the days of bringing a fintech point of sale product to a healthcare office and just talking about approvals, price, right? Those sort of have left my conversations a long time ago. And now it's like, hey, tell me what you need from me and I will deliver it for you. And obviously, everyone's needs are different.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding, like, essentially, doctors have specific things that they don't want to participate in, such
Mhm.
as hiring and turnover in a practice. A lot of doctors just disdain having to get involved with that. So
Yeah.
there's outside companies now that will do it. Makes sense. Or
Yeah.
you can join a management company, such as like a dental service organization, and they handle all that stuff for you.
Mhm.
There's nothing really in the marketplace that helps with sort of financial literacy. How do I take payments? What is a processing fee, for instance?
Mhm.
A lot of folks open up a business and obviously they focus on what their craft is versus I need to know, 70 different things on how to actually run the business. And perhaps I'm spending a lot of time on that versus doing dentistry. The product that we've created under FlexBuy is called Bizly, and it's sort of a just a one-stop, everything in there that has to do with exchanging money, paying, anything payment related. So I
Mhm.
think we solved the big problem out there so far. No, we've been in beta for a while. We are officially live and launched it, and so far the market has told us really that this is really cool. There's a little bit of education surrounding it. It's definitely different, but the folks who get it, they really understand it, and so far the response has been overwhelming.
And that's exciting to know that it's resonating with people, that you're hitting a spot that people are saying, yeah, we really have needed this for a while and seeing that adoption. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's always a little scary, right? Launching a new product
Mhm.
or a new business, right? I mean, I've been part of some startups where the product or offering just didn't resonate with people.
Mm,
And now
right.
you think you've solved the problem in your head, but when you go to commercialization, it never resonated and never took off. It didn't get the steam that you thought it would. Maybe
Yeah.
you're behind the times, maybe you're ahead of the times, right? But for whatever reason, it's a tough pill to swallow when that happens.
Yeah, it really can be. And sometimes you don't necessarily have great insight into what the difference is between the two. So to just see that coming in a positive way, again, just exciting.
Yeah, it is.
So, what types of products or services do you need on your platform to help fund loans sustainably?
Yeah, so again, we work a little bit different.
Mhm.
In healthcare, patient finance, there's a lot of different companies that have a lot of, I don't want to call them me too products because they all have different nuances and workflows and play in different spaces. For instance, like the big behemoth company in the industry is Care Credit, which is Synchrony. They've been
Yeah.
around for 40, 50 years. Everybody knows them. They have millions of cardholders out there within the network. I mean, it's a phenomenal company. It's a phenomenal product. They essentially coined the entire industry, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool. If you were sort of in there at the beginning. But our company relies on partnerships. So FlexBuy relies on partnerships. Partnerships meaning we need the right technology in place, and we have to have the right bank lenders in place that solve a problem, right? Which is uh, maybe I live in a certain area where I see all prime candidates, and it's large ticket, and we're doing all on four implants, which is full mouth reconstruction,
Yeah.
and it's a $50,000 ticket. All right, that's one scenario. Another scenario is I live in a different demographic and not the best FICO worthy
Okay. Yeah.
patients. So I need a product for that. Or maybe you're in an area that you need a product for high ticket, for small ticket. Maybe they need a revolving credit card. Maybe they just do a lot of credit cards and we just need to finance a small bit. Maybe the doctor wants to set up in house financing. And so, with all that being said, we try to partner with someone sort of in each category.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
our goal is not, it's not like, a lot of some people have called this like lending tree, like, oh, you guys partner with a bunch of different companies, but we're really not like that. We
Right.
don't,
It's more like customizing the solution to the need.
yeah. And so what we're really cognizant of our partners and the fact that we don't want our lending partners competing against each other.
Mm.
That it's not ideal, right? A prime lender doesn't want to be sort of the third look in the prime space. The opportunity is being the first look in the prime space. A near prime lender, again, if they're focusing on, they want to be the first one in line to take that first rejection and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
we partner with prime lenders, we partner with near prime lenders, we partner with subprime private lenders. Obviously,
Okay.
in the subprime space, it's a little bit harder to find funds for not worthy individuals, right?
Right.
And I always tell people too, they might not be credit worthy today, but that doesn't mean in a year that they will be.
Right.
So,
Right. These
and
things
so
can change.
yeah, yeah, and it's really important that offices do understand sort of the life cycle of a patient and the life cycle of their financing arms and lenders that help sort of run the practice.
And especially in healthcare, it's an extra concern because sometimes these medical events come out of the blue and you're not prepared for them, and they can really financially hinder you or put you in a bad place. But it is or can be temporary. Yeah, that's an interesting side to all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Brett, I'm curious as a consultant, working specifically in this industry, how do you balance accessibility with protecting against fraud and financial risk?
Yeah, I mean, so it really depends, what you are doing in this industry. We use a product called Tracers.
Hmm.
And so when we go out and along with having this nice platform called Bizly, we're also a merchant acquirer too. So
Oh, okay.
so our value with our partners is that one, we can host them on our platform. Okay. And secondarily, myself and the team will go out and acquire merchants to put on our platform so they have accessibility to said lender that's our partner. Yeah, and so we really try to do sort of a full diagnosis on who we are signing up as a merchant. So we do use tracers. Obviously, there's a lot of fraud. There's fraud on the other end too, with merchants offering loans to customers or consumers,
Mhm.
patients, right? And so upfront, we really try to bring on um, the good merchants. I mean, we run background checks. We use the product called Tracers, and then we also rely on the lenders to have their own fraud systems, securities, which all of them do. The nice thing is we will weed out the bad actors right from the very beginning. So we are not sending those to our partners. That way, that way we can enjoy a pretty fruitful relationship.
I'm curious, what does that look like to be able to weed them out? Is there AI involved? Is it more of a manual process? How do you do that?
Yeah, right now, I mean, for us, it's a little bit more manual. It's not super ideal. We're actively looking at AI components, not just for this, but for really the entire sort of workflow
Okay, yeah.
from actually obtaining the merchant to them actually giving a loan to a patient.
Mhm.
Anything in between there, fraud happens. We all know it. We've probably all experienced it at one point in our life. And it's not just fraud, it's also the fact that, there's numerous ideas of fraud. So,
Right.
for instance, if a patient takes a loan and doesn't have the intent to pay it back, we do consider that fraud, right?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and so it doesn't sound like fraud, it's still a human, right? There's still a patient, they're still using their Social Security number, but the intent behind that is not great.
Exactly.
And
Right.
there's also healthcare practices on a merchant level that can be bad actors, and we're
Mhm.
trying to weed those folks out too. And a lot of it too, it's not even fraud, but it could be reputational risk,
Yeah.
not doing solid work. If there's 50 reviews floating on the internet that say something about the merchant and the quality of work, then maybe we need to dig a little deeper. It's not necessarily like a no, but then it's, can we get a copy of your patient agreement, like refund policy? How do you stand by it? The good merchants understand we don't want to burn bridges with our lenders. At the end of the day, one loan, for instance, doesn't define somebody's business. So
Right.
at that point, you really have to have an honest conversation and look at, is buying back a loan that didn't quite work with the patient, is that the best thing to do right now? Or,
Mm.
is this the hill that you want to die on type stuff?
There you go,
Yeah,
yeah.
and, eventually cooler heads prevail, right? But
Yeah.
it's there's all different sorts of fraud policies, refunds, agreements that patients sign, and it's really weeding through all of that and making sure that really it's fair for everyone,
Mhm.
including us as the platform, our bank partners or lenders, the merchants who are, the doctors, chiropractors, etc. And then obviously the patients, right? Are they getting what they are paying for?
Right,
Yeah.
yes. And that's a lot to manage. There are a lot of different parties with this being a B2B2C that you
Yeah.
have to keep in mind that you need to make sure that you are providing them not only with a valuable service, but with one that is protecting them as well in all of those different categories, both the businesses you work with and the customers that they end up
Yeah.
working with. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we work one of our really good prime lenders, a company called To Pay. Right now, they call every single patient that gets a loan through a dentist, for instance, with them. And so not only is it good for protection with the patient, but also creating that sort of good intent behind,
Mhm.
hey, we're servicing the loan, but we do care about what you purchased. How was your experience? Right? Unhappy patients don't pay their bills.
Yeah, I can see where that'd be like more
Yeah,
likely to say, I don't want to pay that. This
right,
this is
right.
not a good experience.
Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, everyone's got decisions to make on a monthly basis, daily basis,
Mhm.
right? When it comes to your bills, no matter what you have, most things are paid monthly, right? So
Right.
you think, okay, can I fit this into my monthly budget? And if you're not getting the value that you think you should be getting, something's going to get eliminated. And especially during uncertain times, that stuff is going to happen more frequently.
That makes sense.
Delivering the value on what you purchased is really, really important. One of the best industries is ophthalmology. It's LASIK,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
because you just don't walk into your optometrist and say, "I'm ready for LASIK right now. Let's jump into the chair." It's usually a referral from an optometrist to an ophthalmologist who does LASIK. They've talked about it. They've planned it out. Let's say they do get a loan for $4,000 or $5,000, they go through the procedure, and immediately when they come out, they can see again.
Hmm.
Okay. And that's the perceived value. And folks say to themselves, I'm absolutely happy to pay. I got something out of it.
Right.
But when you start to deal with, I'll give you an example, like a chiropractor
Hmm.
come in, let's say of neck pain, say, okay, we need to see about probably 10 to 12 times, right?
Hmm.
And start to do some rehab. After you visit a chiro one time, you don't just walk out the door and say, great, I'm healed.
Right.
You really have to trust the process. If you feel like you're not getting value out of that, it's not a great experience. But the reality is, a lot of doctors get impatient with sort of home compliance. A lot of patients don't comply to a treatment plan. And it's not out of malice, it's just because things happen, things get busy. So it's understanding all of those nuances and connecting with the patients so you can avoid those pitfalls down the road.
It sounds like each subcategory needs to have a different plan.
Yeah,
So the
100%.
optometrist has a simpler plan, but then the chiropractor needs to have something different in place. That's very
Versus a
interesting.
dentist who's delivering all on fours or all on sixes that, they're life-changing procedures, but they're also very expensive. And they do require, if you're getting implants, if you're a smoker, you have to stop. A lot of that stuff can be really hard for people. It's it's always interesting breaking down healthcare, but then going to the sort of sub verticals of really what is needed, and what we have for someone may not resonate with literally someone right down the street,
True.
a different practitioner.
Yeah, everyone has different points of view and perspectives on these things, which causes them to make different choices.
Now, there's also, the dentist who wants every single operatory filled at all times versus the dentist who just wants to see one patient per hour. It's all up to that individual who owns the business, who runs the business. Everyone's got different business models.
Exactly, and different, goals and priorities that
Yeah, yeah,
informs how they run their business.
yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No, not at all, and that's a matter of fact, that's why, like, I left to start my own business was to have that kind of control, so
Yeah,
I
right,
totally get
right.
it.
So if you don't want to work Fridays, you don't have to work
You get
Fridays.
that choice, but you also are, making a bit of a sacrifice in maybe what type of return you might be getting.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all understanding what that person wants. I know sometimes we get fixed on telling them what they should want, which I think is it's an important aspect of selling. If you're uncovering details,
Yeah.
but you really have to understand who you're working with. What does your dentist that you're trying to sell a financing platform, what are they really looking for? And sometimes it's not always a fit, and that's okay.
Yeah. That was interesting. I was thinking about the sales aspect of this just as you mentioned that. So, and you really answered one of the questions, which is how do you strike the balance between informing and selling without coming off as pushy? From your perspective, how are you helping providers have those financial conversations with patients who are already overwhelmed or uncertain, or maybe they're less likely to buy, maybe they're just uninformed. They don't understand the full benefit of what's
Yeah.
being offered to them.
Yeah, I mean, I call that, being salesy without being salesy,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Let's talk
You
about
know,
that.
how do you make a sale without being salesy, right?
Yeah.
You go into your dentist, if you go in for a cleaning, you're going in for a cleaning. You don't
Yeah.
expect someone to all of a sudden say, "Hey, Christy, I think you'd really benefit from our Invisalign program," right?
Uh-huh.
And all of a sudden get you interested, and all of a sudden they're asking you for $5,000. How do we come up with a different talk track? So it's like, man, every time I go in here, all of a sudden they tell me I need braces, and all of a sudden they're asking for $5,000 every single time I go get a cleaning.
Yeah.
That's not going to create lifelong patience. You don't want to be resentful
People
going
will
to get.
avoid going in.
Right, and that's what happens a lot. Understanding your patient, understand why they are coming in. Again, everyone has different needs,
Mhm.
but uncovering them with questions, for instance, when you're sending out your reminder text, maybe there's a subtle hint in there. Press 1 if you want to talk about your smile, right?
Yeah.
During
Okay,
your
there
next
you go.
appointment, okay? So, now it's sort of an opt-in. When a need is uncovered, and here's the hardest part, folks do not like asking for money from other people.
No, we do not. It's
That's
true.
just yeah, that's just the bottom line. It's like, "Hey, Christy, I know you want braces. Okay, great. How do you wanna pay, cash or charge?" Right? That is tough for someone who specifically may have not been hired for that role.
Mhm.
And now you're all of a sudden now you're asking someone, who's could be a hygienist, could be an assistant, right? I came in to do dental assisting, and all of a sudden I'm selling treatment in a private room for thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
Not really what I signed up for. Implementing things that are super, super easy, as in like a workflow. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be that professional salesperson, if you don't want to hire that person, for instance,
Mhm.
coming up with literally sort of a checkout proposal. Okay. Saying like the need, Christy wants Invisalign. Here's the price. It's 5,000. Here, if you pay in full, it's 4,500. If you
Mm.
use a credit card, it's 5,000. If you want to talk about financing, it's around $100 a month. And
Okay.
literally, you could not talk about any of that stuff. You could just jot it down on a form from the office, slide it over to the patient, and say, "Tell me what works best for you." You're not having to say anything else, and start the conversation from there.
And as a patient, I've recently had an experience like that at my dentist office, and it was work that had to be done. This was not optional. And so when they came to me and said, here are the choices that you have. Here are your options. It made it so much easier rather than just seeing this big bill in front of me that's like, "Oh, how am I going to handle that?" It was, oh, here are the different ways I can and which one works best for me. So having those options really makes a big difference.
Yeah, there's certain industries, verticals, there's for certain practitioners
Hmm.
that believe in confusion. If I say a lot of dental terminology,
Yeah,
maybe we're scaring them into moving forward. But here's the thing, that may work one time, okay?
exactly.
And that time is probably the only time. And so
Hmm.
it's not creating the transparency. Like number one thing in healthcare that's not accomplished today is transparency.
Hmm.
And it's really, really hard because when a dentist or an MD, plastic surgeon, for instance, in their mind, they're thinking about their business and what they have to do all the time. And so you get sort of caught up in that trap of all right. While I'm presenting, I'm thinking about what does that mean for my business versus removing myself from the situation and say, okay, what does that actually mean for my patient?
Mm.
What do we need to accomplish here? How do we want to make this the best experience for this person at this specific time? I mean, it is a little bit more work, but that is how you create lifelong patience.
And you can't skip those steps. When you mentioned it takes, it's a lot of work. It takes that. If you want to build those relationships where you've got long-term patience, you have to.
Yeah.
I went into a dentist office one time that was really just kind of a churn and burn. You could feel it when you walked in. I'm like, "Oh, I don't like this." And so you can tell, you can feel the difference, and you wanna be someplace where you know that your best outcome is what their goal is. So, yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's like really getting into the nitty-gritty, right?
Yeah.
Because a dentist may want to run that specific business,
True.
right?
True.
And
That
they may
that could
say,
be their
like,
model.
"Yeah, you know what? I'm not the family dentist.
Uh-huh.
Anytime there's work that needs to be done and people don't have dental insurance, like, I want to be that dentist."
Let's just
And
get it
so
done.
it's just like anything else. It doesn't align, right? Yeah,
And
it happens all the time.
it fits what certain people are looking for as well, to your point, right? Someone's like, "I've got an emergency. I just need to get this taken care of. Where can I go?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the worst thing you can do is try to be something to everyone and appease everyone. If it was me, I would rather focus on the things that I do well, the
Mhm.
things that I think I can help with quite a bit in a specific patient pool. But again, at the end of the day, that practitioner, owner, they have to pay their employees, they have
Mhm.
to pay the rent, they have to pay the materials. So it's really that fine line of sticking to a plan and making it happen.
So, Brett, while we were talking about that, I was wondering if you have any stories that you can share where patients were able to access care because of your new platform.
Yeah, I mean, and not just our platform, but really anything in patient financing.
Mm.
So my background was with dental implants.
Right.
And so I remember going around and you're selling this sort of $400 widget, a screw to oral surgeons, to
Mhm.
periodontists, to general practitioners. And all you know is it's $400. And again, you're just encompassed with what you need to do. And so you're just trying to sell as many as possible. You don't really get caught up in what does the dentist do with that, right? And how are they helping a transformation for a patient? You don't really see that other side.
Yeah.
Now that they're placing these widgets, plants, how are people paying for this stuff?
Mhm.
I tell you, I had no idea that implants for some full arch
Yeah.
were in the neighborhood of 20 to 25,000. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm just selling these implants for $400. Then you start to get into the dental financing side. And I remember sitting in someone in, I think it was Lake Havasu, Arizona, and they're presenting this full mouth treatment. And they're presenting it's $50,000. And I'm like, holy cow. What am I sitting in right now?
Right.
And this was a while back, like, it's the cost of a Lexus at that point,
Right.
right? And how are you getting someone to put a Lexus into your mouth? And so, that was my experience into dental financing and understanding what does this mean for the patient? And really the biggest, outcomes, like the most successful ones, I've sat chairside when I was in implants, and also, the stories of friendlier dentists who sort of give you the outcome. I remember being in someone's office, did the implants in the posterior of the mouth, and like the first reaction from that patient was, I can eat ribs again. And
Uh,
if you think about that, like, oh my God, this guy probably came in 4 different times to get prepped for implants. Then he's getting put under and getting implants. And then he wakes up and the very first thing he can think about, and it's an older gentleman, like, I can eat a specific food group. I mean, it's pretty remarkable if you actually think, if you actually diagnose it and get to that level, like that's the very first thing he thought about when he got implants was,
mhm.
I can enjoy something that I couldn't enjoy prior to this.
Yeah.
And again, everyone's gonna be different. Everyone's gonna say, "Maybe I went through Invisalign. You know what? I can smile again. Maybe I'm not embarrassed. Maybe I'm not embarrassed to go on a Zoom call now or give a smile." Like, it's
Right.
really understanding, really, like, the need behind the need. It's like so much of a, old adage in sales, like, "Get the need behind the need." But if you really understand, like, if you really get to that point where you're understanding, like, "You know what? Christy didn't want she didn't want braces, like, she wanted confidence, like, that was the
Exactly.
need,
Yeah.
right? The braces was just the vessel to get to that point. So if you understand that, it is so much easier, all of a sudden, you're not selling treatment, but you're solving problems. Just understanding what patients are thinking,
Mhm.
it's really, really difficult, but at the same time, that's some of the things that folks in the healthcare industry can work more on, is understanding how do we connect with this patient. If it was me, a dentist is going to want me to come in, my wife to come in, my 2 kids to come in, my
Mhm.
mom, my dad, anyone who's local. That is how you build a successful practice. But understanding why they're coming in and what keeps them coming in is really important. So you could use that for to sort of extrapolate to your entire potential patient base or your existing patient
Yeah.
base.
And there are things beyond just your typical biannual cleaning and check-in, or your annual physical, where people are making decisions for elective services, and that I think that those are always emotional. You'll have the emotion around maybe some scary things that come up, some emergencies, but it's those more confidence-based motivation to be able to just eat a good food again type of thing that is
Yeah,
emotional.
yeah. I mean, if you think of, these all on four treatments, suddenly it gives people a new set of teeth. Now that people are living longer, it's super, super important. But you get the nutritional value from different foods, for instance. It's a little bit more hygienic, right? If you're a grandparent and you're taking your teeth in and out, Yeah,
I
it's
remember my grandparents doing that.
yeah, yeah, I remember my grandparents having those flippers and showing us
Yeah.
as kids, like, how they can just take a tooth right out of their mouth and yeah,
A little
the kids
traumatic when I was younger.
yeah, the kids ooh and ah, but I would imagine most people, if they didn't have to go through that, they wouldn't go through that,
Yeah,
right? And if there was a
absolutely.
solution, then and if they could fortunately, money does come into, play a lot of the times, but it's like anything else. Is it investment for your future? Yes. If you feel more confident, let's say you're not in the dating scene, all of a sudden you feel like you are, right? I'm up for a promotion. You want to dress for the part, you want to act the part, you want to look the part, and maybe this helps, right? And I always say when people want something bad enough, they will find a way to get it. In healthcare, you really have to have that honest conversation and say, okay, how do we make this happen for you? What do we need to do?
Right.
And again, you don't want to let folks leave the office for weeks and weeks and ponder over it. Right? Any excuse, anything will come up. Like if the money is geared towards the healthcare
Yeah.
situation, all of a sudden your fridge breaks. What are you going to do? Your car breaks. So
You got to
it's
figure it
really
out.
about capturing that essence of time. Like when you have your patient excited, and again, not to sell them, but to solve a problem.
Right. So, what is one piece of financial advice that you would give someone who's hesitant about financing a major health decision?
One piece of advice, everything's at our fingertips now. I think understanding the procedures and the outcomes before you step into your dentist for an all on four, for instance. Before you get in there, do your own research. Understand what the risks are, what the benefits are. Understand the importance of a financial plan, and that financial plan can consist of financing or maybe I mean, maybe I take a second mortgage on my house. Like these are big decisions. Really, just weighing the fact. Like I always tell people, don't you know, don't solve one life stressor just for another. Don't fix one problem. Let's say it's a healthcare problem. Don't fix that just to get into financial stress because those are two of the top life stressors.
Yeah.
You're essentially taking a dollar out of your left pocket and you're putting it in your right pocket. So I solved this, but now I have this. Financial hardships do lead to poor um, poor health. It's been documented.
Isn't that interesting?
It's hard to solve everything, but that's where I think understanding what you're getting into, there's so many like forums, things that people can do prior. And going back to like the LASIK stuff, again, you don't go right to your ophthalmologist and say, hey, okay, I'm ready for this procedure.
Yeah.
You do a little bit of research, you find out how much it costs, you find out which doctor has good reviews. Maybe you're talking to some of those people. Maybe you're finding a couple folks who have gone through this procedure and asking them, tell me your thoughts. And then creating all of those tidbits of information into what fits best for you and then going to make it happen. I know if I have poor credit, you should know that. Like everyone should know what their financial self-literacy is, right, at that specific time in their life. But
Yeah.
but taking the steps to solving whatever it is that you want solved shouldn't start right away with getting slipped a large bill and then trying to figure it all out. Yeah, the healthcare, the insurance, the sort of the healthcare understanding um, of specific individuals. There's not a lot of education out there, right? And
Yeah.
that's really like what has been lacking a lot is no one teaches you how your health insurance works, right? You sort of
And
find
it's
out by
complicated.
it's very complicated, right? And then, you're going for a checkup for your MD. It's not the same checkup for your DDS, for instance. One's maybe a copay, one may be out of pocket, one may be covered at 50%. But understanding that and really getting ahead of that, and that's something that medical offices can help their patients with. Maybe there's a website, maybe there's an everyone gets the explanation of benefits, but that's always afterwards, right?
It is,
Not
yes.
prior.
I am going to ask you just one more question before we end, and that is, if someone is listening to this and struggling to afford any type of healthcare, what's the first step they should take?
I would go to their existing practitioner, whatever it is for,
Mhm.
and I would schedule a consult and I would just ask, be as transparent as possible about the situation you're in, and then seek help. It's okay to not understand how insurance works. It's okay
Exactly.
to not understand how your FICO score works.
Mhm.
It's okay to not understand why a loan has specific rates and maybe don't understand, what's deferred interest, what's no interest, what does a 19.9% APR look like? What happens if I put it on my credit card and I don't pay it off? It's okay to not know all that. Uh, you have to really step up. You have to have folks that you trust in and that you're comfortable asking. And if you're not comfortable getting to that point of asking for help, most people like to be asked for help because,
It's true. Yes,
yeah,
they'd like to be of service to others in some way or another.
right, right.
Yeah.
Like, Chrissy, if you're the expert, I want to come to you and you want to tell me all the knowledge that you have in your specific field and teach me about it. That's where just talking about it and not necessarily asking for help at that specific juncture will alleviate a lot of stress at the very least. And really, that's a starting point. Other folks writing stuff down and writing the steps that you need to take in order to either get what you want or get what you need in terms of healthcare or really anything else. It will help take the thoughts out of your head, put them on paper, and say, you know what? I may not be able to do this today. But when I look back 90 days and then I look back 180 days, like it's pretty amazing what people can accomplish. Um, at that point and
Absolutely.
realize like, okay, whatever I'm doing, whatever plan I put for myself, it is working. And like similar to you and I starting on businesses, you don't just open a business and start making money on day one.
Nice. I really
Yeah,
kinda
yeah, of
wish,
course,
but
it'd be
yeah.
great. But right, you have your 90-day plan. You say, wow, I could have never done this in a day, but in 90 days, you know what? The needle's moving. All of a sudden, after a year, you're like, wow. I mean, and let's see, I have 200 customers now. Holy cow! Like the things you set for yourself, they are achievable, regardless of what the end goal is.
Yeah, it may just take a little extra time and effort. Well, Brett, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining today and for your insights and your suggestions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for watching our podcast today. I'm Kristen Nielsen. I'm the owner of Copper Canvas Ads Agency, and we partner with FinTechs to help them scale their business within a 12-month period. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I've seen how saturated the market can be, and therefore how difficult it can be to make your business stand out in a sea of other FinTechs that may look similar or maybe even slightly different. But how do you make yours stand out? How do you get your message to the right people and those with high buying intent? That's what Copper Canvas Ads Agency is here to do. We are a growth partner, and we take a deep dive into your business to really understand what your strong points are, where there may be areas of weakness, and how we can fill those areas of weakness and create a plan to move forward in a strong way and really scale. So if you are interested, simply go to our website, coppercanvasadsagency.com, and schedule a time. There are buttons right there on the front page for you to book a time, and then we'll love to talk to you and see what we're able to do together.